Continuing on with the nutritional aspect of the neurological profiles, well, the 1B is fairly similar to the 1A because they are both dopamine driven. Now, the 1B doesn't tend to have the same urges to satisfy with cravings or with bad foods, but it can still happen. So the biggest pitfall still remains making food choices based on taste instead of function, making bad food choices. I've known, for example, sprinters who would eat like 3 Snickers bars per day, 1 hamburger, and 1 meal of chicken. That was his daily diet. The guy was super lean because the calories were still fairly low, but the food choices were not optimal. I've known a pro football player, very good football player, basically his diet was like 50% cheese, like oftentimes processed cheese and Red Bull. So again, that was not, and cheeseburgers and stuff like that. And the guy was super lean because the quantity was still fairly low for the activity level he has. But the choices were not optimal. And as I mentioned earlier, this often leads to post-career fat gain because now they don't have the activity level to keep themselves lean while also eating crap. But they don't tend to binge out or anything like that. So my recommendations will be fairly similar to the 1A. Just as a reminder, they do better on a low carbs diet. I'm not talking about like 25 gram, 50 gram, 50, 100, 125. Low carbs relative to their expenditure. So for some people, low carbs can be as low as 200 grams. For some people, it has to be 25 grams. So the type 1B will do better on low carbs, but just like the 1A, they need a day with higher carbs every 3 or 4 days. Still going at maintenance if trying to get lean, not higher. And if they're trying to get more muscular, they can go a bit above maintenance. They should also do very short but very intense periods of dieting, like very large caloric deficit, but only for a brief period of time. They respond better to that. The one main difference that you will have between the 1A and the 1B is the ratio of protein to fats. The 1A would have a higher protein content to their diet. They could go as high as 1.5 grams per pound, whereas the 1B would be a bit lower on the protein intake, 1.25 gram per pound, a bit lower, but their fat intake need to be a bit higher. Obviously, ideally in the form of good fats, but you really need a balance. If you just add fish oil, it doesn't work. You need a pretty good balance of unsaturated fat, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and saturated fats. So olive oil, you can have some egg yolks in there, you can have some fish oil, you can have some coconut oil. Ideally, you could, if you want to be really simple, you would go with an equal ratio of olive oil, coconut oil, and fish oil. So if you just had that to regular diet, let's say I'm going to add 20 grams of fish oil, 20 grams of coconut oils, and 20 grams of olive oil on top of my regular diet, that's pretty good because it's a pretty well balanced ratio of all three. So that would be the main difference between a 1B and a 1A would be the fat to protein ratio.